Welcome to this week's Wellness, Wealth and Mindset weekly newsletter. Wherever you're getting this newsletter, in your inbox, in your ears with my weekly podcast, or if you're watching me on YouTube, then thanks for your support. Don't forget to subscribe and comment, send some love if you're enjoying the weekly installments of me sharing my personal lessons and experiences from the past week in regards to my health, wealth and mindset. So let's take a deep dive into what's been going on with me the last week. So recently, health-wise, recently turned 40, later part of last year, and my attention has very much moved towards longevity and sustainability. This trend has happened with my health and developed slowly since 2019, and when the pandemic hit, really shifted my perspective on how I train and take care of myself. Prior to this, I might have been like most people that are trying to push themselves harder to better their performance, to run faster, cycle quicker, and overall be stronger. But for the most part, this has always come at a cost for me: injury and time. Every time I trained for a marathon, I picked up an injury, apart from my first ever marathon, and always went into an event carrying some form of niggle and injury, which is always going to affect your performance on the day. And at the time, in order to be successful by my own personal standards, I also had to sacrifice a lot of time and dedicate myself to achieve these goals. Recently doing the 2019 triathlon in Mallorca, half Ironman, dedicated 6 months, full on training, 10 hours plus a week for 6 months. While I achieved my goals I was aiming for, can I sustain that going forward in the long run? And is that important to me in the long run as it is as my priorities change as I've got older? And certainly when I was a young man, time wasn't a problem. But recently in that time, I've met my girlfriend and I wanted different things in life. And time has become certainly more precious in terms of spending time with her, working on my business and just overall being healthy, as opposed to just dedicating all my time to one sport and maybe missing out on other things in life that I do want to enjoy. And trying to find that balance between enjoying my life, looking after my body, and still enjoying, my cycling and triathlon and, my activities that I do like to take part in on a regular basis. So what I focused on, instead of feeling like I've always need to push myself to be better physically, I am more now conscious on my recovery and trying to limit my fatigue. So in doing so, this is definitely helping me train 5 to 6 days a week, spend more time and more productive time with my girlfriend. Also has been reducing my likelihood of injury, and this has also allowed me to be more consistent with my training schedule. So I was having a calf injury, stopped running, focused on more on cycling, doing a lot of zone 2 efforts, weight training twice a week, but managing the intensity and making sure that the majority of the training is allowing me to train consistently without too much fatigue. If I am getting fatigued for a certain session and I can't manage those intensities, then we'll bring that fatigue down to try and progress. So, while I'm still reaching and aiming for some goals and always looking to progress, and now take a better view that I'm able to be more consistent at doing this for the next 40 years rather than just focusing on short periods of time and then needing taking some time off. Because sometimes when we go into things, we might sacrifice a real big chunk of time, but we know we can't sustain that long term. So we're really committed for a short period. And then after that, we kind of take our foot off the gas and, we yo-yo diet, but also yo-yo train, where we train really hard and then don't train as much. And then our fitness becomes really, peak fitness, and then it drops off significantly. So just trying to maintain that consistently throughout the year and not really drop my performance throughout the year, and just maintain a nice balance and, essentially limiting that crash and burn effect that we can also come to. So let me know if that's a factor for you in the comments below. If you're a crash and burn kind of person that trains, or do you try and manage your fatigue a little bit more? And let me know how you're doing that as well. Wealth-wise, still reading the book, The Psychology of Money. And it's an amazing book, definitely recommend it. Link to the book is in the description to this video and in the show notes of the podcast. But I wanted to share a little quote from the book before a personal story with you. So this is a quote from the book. So much consumer spending, particularly in developed countries, is socially driven, subtly influenced by people you admire, and done because you subtly want people to admire you. But while we can see how much money other people spend on cars, homes, clothes, and vacations, we don't get to see their goals, worries, and aspirations. And this really resonated with me when I read this week, because wasn't long ago that I owed £12,000 in debt, a position that I never expected personally to be in, and one that accumulated very quickly. This passage from the Psychology of Money clearly described the many reasons, among others, where I found myself in such amount of debt. And despite my best to keep up with what the world around me said I needed to be in order to be happier, I didn't really listen to what I needed personally to be happy. And while we can all gain some pleasure from material things, luxury items or experiences, the lesson for me was at what cost. Because since then I've certainly had a deeper understanding of what makes me happy, and what I desire my wealth to be is certainly a key lesson I feel we should all take note of, because we're all aspiring to what maybe someone else wants rather than ourselves, and in doing so we can get trapped in a vicious cycle of trying to keep up with everybody and never being happy because we're not focusing on what we truly want and what we desire. So I think it's important to take a step back and review that, and I'll be sharing more about my story in newsletters to come, and how I got out of debt and how my perception of wealth has changed throughout my years. But definitely check out Psychology of Money. It is an awesome book, nearly towards the end now. So mindset wise, I shared last week that how I've been stopped watching Ozark because it wasn't good for me and my girlfriend. And I did tease a little show that we've been watching, which is a real heartwarmer. And the series I want to share with you today, which we came across, was The Detectorists. And this was amazing. So having decided to come and move away from the series, now come across a beautiful series called Detectorists. And this is set in Danbury in North Essex. The plot revolves around the lives, loves and metal detective ambitions of characters Andy and Lance, and they're members of the Danbury Metal Detecting Club. And the main filming location for the series, and there was a Christmas special as well, was in Framingham, which is a small market town in Suffolk. At first glance, you might see this is boring, but once you really take a deep dive in with very little expectations, then you'll find that they're exceeded. It was for me and my girlfriend. It was amazing in a way because it was really refreshing. It was a change to everything else we're seeing on TV and being promoted on TV at the moment, which can be quite negative and angry. And that's probably a narrative I'm seeing quite more at the moment. And personally, we found that this doesn't really support us mentally. It doesn't put us in a good frame, doesn't improve our well-being, and it can be quite challenging to watch these kind of negative shows. So having something more light-hearted and positive was certainly a real fresh, breath of fresh air. And each scene was set in a beautiful English countryside as well, showcasing how beautiful the countryside is around us in the UK. And we're actually going to go and discover some of it for ourselves by going for a nice weekend away in Suffolk later in the year, which is good. Honestly, we're really, really, really sad when this series ended. Watched all 3 seasons plus the Christmas special, and like I said, we're hoping to grab a lasting memory by visiting later in the year. But if you haven't seen it, definitely highly recommend it. Something really awesome to worth watching that's going to leave you feeling all cozy and warm inside. It's just really nice. The countryside that you experience by watching it, gives you a nice uplift, especially in the winter months. And the whole premise of the show was just really nice and heartwarming, as opposed to being angry and aggressive and someone being shot, someone being murdered, all this kind of stuff. So definitely check it out. The link to the show is on BBC iPlayer, link in the show notes and the description to this video alongside the newsletter. I'm just going to leave you this week with a quote from the show, which is really important for me, and let you think about it, and take your 2 cents from this quote from the Detectorists. We unearth the sacred memories, mind the stories, fill in the personality. Detectorists, we are time travelers. And I'm going to share my thought on this one because the show, might think it's quite geeky, but actually when you unearth the stories behind it and dig a bit deeper, just has so many really heartwarming stories that we can sort of appreciate where we've come from, what's come before us as well within history on our planet. Is pretty amazing. So I'm going to leave you that with today at the end of today's newsletter. If you haven't subscribed yet, then don't forget to subscribe, like if you enjoyed this video, and follow on the podcast. If you want to sign up, there'll be an access link to the weekly newsletter as well in the show notes and the description to this video. I hope you enjoyed this week's installment of Wellness, Wealth and Mindset, and I'll be sharing again next week my experiences and personal lessons on that next week. So we'll see you again soon.